Caleb Williams is a bust. Fire Ryan Poles. He sucks. Matt Eberflus, get him out of here. Shane Waldron, why'd we hire him? These kinds of takes have been all over Bears Twitter, and they're driving me and Nick up the wall. The Bears lost a game to the Texans. We're here to review it as we get set for an upcoming noontime game against the Indianapolis Colts. Everything's coming at you on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, right here alongside my co-host Nick Whalen of Football Guys as we work to build you the best and most balanced film, statistical analytics, everything podcast relating to your Chicago Bears. And Nick, I gotta be honest with you, I am fired up about this one because I kind of can't believe that in the world of what do they say? What's the old saying? Good teams win, great teams cover. The Bears covered a game against a team that we think is going to be in the Super Bowl at what you and I think is the weakest point of the schedule for this team. And let me clarify what I mean by that. When you and I looked at this season going forward, September is where the Bears were going to be the worst. This was always where they were going to be at their clunkiest. This was where the rookies were going to be most rookie. And boy, did they look rookie on Sunday night. Nevertheless, it is as if we are at DEFCON 2, if not DEFCON 1. All of a sudden, everything's got to go. It feels like week 12 of last year. Out of nowhere, we're 1-1. Bears are going up against whatever's left of the Colts and then a team that is quickly becoming the Rams' second string. I haven't let you talk yet. How are you doing? Are you feeling as weird about this point in the fan base reaction as I am?
Yeah, it's honestly, I've almost like gotten off of Twitter because it's just so ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about, even texts I get, people are like, well, look, that's why you can't win with a defensive head coach. And I'm like, wasn't D'Amico Ryans on the other sideline? Like, that just shows you that can work. And everyone wants to reshuffle the line. And it's just drastic measures for, again, y'all, a team that we were supposed to lose to on the road. And early in the season when we're beat up, you don't have Keenan. I just, it was a little surprising, the reaction to me that was so over the top when it was within 6. And it wasn't like, let's go back a year, y'all. It wasn't like, oh, we're down 3 and then Caleb throws a pick 6, on the screen. Like, that's deflating. Losing to the Chiefs by like 40, whatever it was. That's deflating. We're close. I can't remember who it was. I think Alex Brown, he does some CHGO stuff now. Like, he's like, y'all, they're close. And the Bears are close. But I mean, I didn't expect this. I know the offense is disappointing right now. It's worse than me and you had thought, but this is just a little over the top for me.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And here's another thing that I personally think, Nick, has gotten to the point, it sounds ridiculous. What I'm about to say, Nick, sounds crazy, but it's real, right? I don't have the numbers for the first point in front of me, but last year, a lot of people said the run game's not good enough. That's part of why Fields can't pass the ball. Like, that's why we can't move the ball through the air. But the run game last year was one of the best running units in football, and it stayed really strong when Tyson Bagent was the quarterback. So while Justin Fields was definitely a part of the rushing success, also Khalil Herbert and Luke Getsy were doing a lot of good things together with what was left of basically the same Bears offensive line. We are not getting that this year. This year, there's an element of it where the guards are just getting bodied. That's life right now. Coleman Shelton, look, man, I thought Shelton was going to do a lot more, especially after this preseason. Nick, he does not look playable. The Bears don't have another center that they can play at his place. But right now, the statty word would be below replacement level. That's what we're getting from Coleman Shelton. Doesn't help anything that DeAndre Swift might be blind, because plenty of these run tracks are not where he's going. I'm looking at outside runs to the left that he takes straight up the gut duo runs that he takes outside to the left. It's like Swift is trying to find the unblocked defender at some point. And I have to think those things will change. Then we look at the offensive line, right, Nick? Last game, Caleb Williams got sacked 7 times. Common refrain immediately becomes, didn't we get rid of Fields because he took too many sacks? If you'd like to guess, Nick, what do you think is Caleb Williams' time to throw this year?
Oh, well, I've already seen this. It's league average or better.
It is right now, his average over the last 2 games is 2.64 the seconds time to throw. And his average depth of target is very low. Like, just because he has a low time to throw does not immediately make him good. Right now, we have evidence that Caleb is throwing the ball quickly. Lest we forget, last year, Justin Fields averaged about a 3.36 time to throw. So that's almost a full second's time difference that right now, Caleb, despite all these scrambles where he still throws the ball away, Caleb's not getting that time.
Right.
I know, Nick, to wrap all this up, this sounds like 2 guys just coping, looking at the same team with the same problems. But I would look at it and say, last year, everything we said was a problem with the quarterback. A lot of it was. This year, the supporting cast, especially against a very good Texans team and a spicier Titans defensive line than I think some want to admit, right now the supporting cast has let down a rookie quarterback that's made plenty of mistakes on his own, but there's a lot that Caleb's done well. Like, the only reason the Bears scored any points at all is because Caleb Williams made just enough plays to put them in scoring range 3 different times. I feel very weird about this because I'm not trying to make the argument that Caleb is playing great ball right now. And yet, Nick, when I looked at that abysmal tape yesterday, Caleb is in the middle of the pack in terms of reasons the offense is struggling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, also you could talk through, his bad plays are bad, but you get those from a rookie. But his good plays, I think you could argue he has 2 drop touchdowns plus another touchdown to Carter up the seam if it wasn't interfered with. And those big plays are very close. It's not like we're like imagining. It's like they're really close. I kind of laughed earlier, Robert, because we talk about PFF often on this podcast. And when I watched the tape, ugly, right? Offensive line play. Exactly what you said. I don't know what Swift's doing. Even Herbert in the preseason was running outside of his blocks. It's just, I don't know what's going on with that.
What's going on? I don't know,
But
man.
but when I look at the PFF grades, okay, let's just stick with the offensive line because this is the big one, right? Everyone wants to reshuffle the line and punt everybody into the sun. I am floored at this, Robert. What do you think Coleman Shelton's grade is in terms of centers out of 33? Like, where does he rank?
Okay, so you said you were floored,
Yep.
which has me guessing. I'm gonna guess he's 27th.
12th.
No way!
Well, best center in the NFL. Now, if you had to guess, right, everyone would say probably not a good pass blocking center. And you'd be correct, right? He's, I don't know, I would say just below average in the pass blocking area among centers. Run blocking, he is 5th. So that was a little surprising to me. Now, if we go through the rest of the O-line, okay?
Feels very cheap, I gotta say. Like,
I know.
I'm more saying, like, I'm only saying that just to be like, well, I'm not sitting here hearing, oh, well, he's 12th. Well, I guess he's playing pretty well then. Like, the pass blocking is
I don't
that
think he is
bad.
playing well, but we had talked about this. The benchmark for centers is low.
It's really low. I mean, there are just not that many guys that are going to block Tavondre Sweat. There's like 8 of them. That might be a high number, actually. But keep going.
And Zach Frazier, right? People, I love Zach Frazier coming out too. And again, he's a rookie, so I'll give him this. Worse than Coleman Shelton. Lloyd Cushenberry, worse than Coleman Shelton. Frank Ragnow, Ethan Posick, John Michael Schmitz, Connor Williams. Again, I can't believe he's even playing. So kudos.
And
I've
got some people that have been watching him recently that have said he doesn't look right. I mean, that
lower, all lower than Coleman Shelton. So shocker. Okay, next one. Tevin Jenkins.
To add on to your point, if you don't mind, Nick, I've seen a lot of people right now that are complaining about Rome Odunze. I am one of them. But then there are people that take it a step further, because we can talk about Rome later. There are people that take a step further and say they shouldn't have drafted Rome. They should have taken a lineman. And Nick, we just watched DeMarcus Walker. You want to remind me how many pressures he picked up against J.C. Latham?
Yeah,
Like,
well, and Darnell Taylor too.
Nick, we're talking
Addressable.
about a rookie that gave up 6 pressures. And you could argue, I'm not going to argue it because he's a rookie. Nick, you know me. I think pretty much every rookie is unilaterally bad. And that when you get a Marvin Harrison esque performance, that's something to celebrate rather than something to expect. But you could argue JC Latham was a massive part of losing the game outright
Yeah,
because
yeah.
putting Levis under pressure apparently leads to nothing good. But that's life when you're a rookie or
Yeah,
when you're a rookie tackle. You're
yeah,
anything you do badly, anything
right.
is going to get exploited. And so trying to look at the Bears situation, in my opinion, and say, well, how much better would they be with Latham? Not very. I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess maybe they. No, I mean, I don't know why the receivers would look any different right now,
Yeah,
but they wouldn't have any hope for the future either. Getting back
right.
into Tevin Jenkins, though.
Yeah. So Tevin Jenkins, up and down, ranks 22nd among guards, which was shocking out of 68. Um, Braxton is 44th out of 68 tackles, and Darnell's 50th out of 68 tackles, and Nate Davis is 49th. And Nate Davis's grade last week, because I looked at it, jumped down a lot because of the 2 false starts too. So if you look at it, no one's at the dead bottom, although that's kind of what we expect because I think Bears fans, we are very honed in on the Bears. We're not looking at the 31 other teams that they have messes too. You talked about Latham, right? You can go through the list of like, oh man, injuries. We got this guy in here. This is bad. The Bears got sacked a lot last week. I get that part of it, but there's a lot of other sacks going on and a lot of low scoring games right now and a lot of not great quarterback play. So again, you could call me coping, whatever, but this is just PFF showing that maybe a lot of offensive lines aren't doing well.
Right. I feel very weird as an analyst looking at this team because on one hand, of course, I know everybody feels bad after a loss. This is something you and I have talked about in a couple of off-season podcasts, Nick, where we try to project what the vibes are going to be like after you lose a game because people always ratchet up the doom anytime they lose one ball game. Then you come back and you beat the Colts, and one group of the aisle is going to say, it's the Colts. Who cares? And the other
Yep.
side is going to be like, Super Bowl, baby. Here we go. And there's no middle at all. And it's if you ride the roller coaster too closely, it can be pretty exhausting. And on a
Yeah.
game like last week, where the entire offense was awful, like Caleb, I think, missed a couple reads and then tried to force the envelope way too much in the third quarter. But Nick, that was one of the best halves of quarterbacking I've seen in a hot minute in the first half. I mean, especially a couple of those. One of my favorite plays was the simple play. It's what, 2nd and 10, I think. And Caleb just steps up past a Will Anderson rush that puts Darnell Wright in his passing lane. Once Caleb has identified that the route he has to DJ Moore isn't going to be open, so he needs to check it down to Swift. Swift breaks out on a halfback option route. And Caleb steps up into the passing lane and with no base flicks the ball to Swift, who catches it, turns upfield to set up a 3rd and 3 that the Bears convert. The Bears go on to kick field goal on this drive. That's the stuff that we've been getting killed with when any other quarterback lines up against the Bears for my whole life. Like those little downs where you turn 2nd and 10 that should have been an incompletion or a sack into a very nice and manageable 3rd down. You start stealing yardage little by little. Everybody wants to talk about the chunks, man. But you and I have seen this. When people talk about winning from the pocket, it's rarely like hitting these massive 15-yard ins. We'll get there. That's great from the pocket. But first, you got to be able to avoid the sack and take the 5-yard check down. Because once you can do that, you start stepping up. I also think it's worth mentioning, Nick, that there's one specific matchup that I feel like nobody wants to talk about because it's probably not that fun to talk about. There's only one person on the internet who I saw gleefully talk about this matchup. That's JT O'Sullivan. You're going to know why he gleefully talked about it in a minute. But Nick, this was a pretty awful matchup for DJ Moore. Like Stingley strapped him. And you're not going to get that every week. So even if you don't believe in Caleb, even if you don't believe in DeAndre Swift, if you think DJ Moore can play, the Colts, the Rams, the Panthers, maybe not the Panthers because JC Horn, but then the Commanders, definitely. A lot of the teams on the rest of the schedule are going to have way more trouble containing DJ Moore compared to that Texans team, which the way the game played out, you and I highlighted a bunch of matchups. The Bears just lost them. That's football
Mhm.
sometimes. And even then, man, they were one decent drive away from winning the game outright.
Right. Right. And well, and again, I mean, I just looked it up quickly. Last year, Derek Stingley Jr., who was in his second year in the NFL, ninth best corner. So that right there,
He's playing
that's
ball. He's
yeah.
playing
And
ball right
the, the,
now.
the and the problem is you didn't have Keenan Allen and Rome. I don't know how healthy Rome is. I know people are like disappointed. I don't know. He's not 100%. There's no way, but he's out there doing okay, right? But when they're playing cover one, press man, and saying, "I dare you to beat us," and we're going to bring a lot of pressure, that's needed receivers to win, and they weren't winning.
I think it's really funny when we talk about Rome because, Nick, I'll tell you what, Rome's physical is looking better than I thought it would from Washington. I actually had some slight concerns about how Rome would separate and worried that he might be more of an Allen Robinson type, right? Like one shoulder width open, but at least he could catch a contested ball.
Mhm.
Dude is running some routes. His feet look good. The
Yeah,
problem is, Nick, he looks like he got the playbook last week. I mean,
yeah.
there are a couple of moments where Rome is making decisions or running routes out on the football field with so little technique that I wonder what's going through his mind. Little things like, why aren't we clearing that out? Or why aren't we widening this route to create a bigger window? For instance, Nick, I'll give you a football example. On one of the plays that Caleb threw an interception on, it's his second interception like the second listed interception, the third ball that was caught by the opposing team. You know what
Yep.
I
I
mean?
know exactly what you're going to say, or I hope so.
And on this play, the Bears are running double slants. So the first slant is to Cole Kmet, the second slant is to Rome Odunze. And Rome shears his slant so short, so far towards the inside, that there isn't a window for Caleb to put the ball into his gut. Instead, and I've seen Keenan Allen and other route runners do this, a lot of guys on that second slant, Nick, they widen out towards the outside of the field, towards the
Yes.
numbers, so that then they shank back and it ends up kind of looking more like an angle route than a
Mhm.
slant, but it creates a bigger, healthier window for your quarterback to throw the ball. When Rome ran the slant a little too fast, that means that Caleb, who played a little too slow, like a rookie, had no window, had to roll out, ends up forcing a ball to Komet that I think he can make that throw, but that's neither here nor
That,
there.
that's not what I was going to go with.
What were you going to go with?
So I agree with you there, and that's the other part too. I think a lot of people don't think of football as a spacing game. It is a very big spacing game. But what I was going to go with after that happened, Caleb rolls out, Komet goes to a corner, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
throws it and it gets picked, right? The guy underneath him is Rome. What
Yep.
does Rome do? Rome is initially open, then he turns, runs up the field, his back to Caleb, then turns back around. And at that point, the ball's in the air. If he keeps looking at Caleb or backs up a little bit, I think Caleb throws short to him. It's a completion. It's on second down, I believe. Hey, maybe you move the chains or it's third and short. But I think after he turns his back, Caleb's like, well, I got to go here. And he does. So that's another thing, too, for like Rome, like situation, man, scrambling, you're open, just chill there, right? Because I
Right.
know scramble rules, when you're short, go deep, when you're deep, go short, go towards your quarterback, all that kind of stuff. But normally go to the sideline. Just go to the sideline and you're there and sit there. And he went up the field and turned his back to his quarterback, which you don't turn your back to the quarterback in scramble rules.
All kinds of communication issues all over the
Mhm.
offense. I mean, typified by the obvious inability to pick up a stunt. But I don't
Yeah.
think you and I need to talk about it. It's been just about talked about to death. The
Yeah.
good news, at least from what I've seen, Nick, this could sound like Colt Bears fans, but I want to just point you back to last year, right? One thing that I learned last year is that in the NFL, if you want to create change, first do something so embarrassingly bad that it gets national attention. When you are one of the worst defenses in football, Nick, the Broncos and the Bears create change, right? You just don't last at the true bottom for very long. Right now, the Bears cannot pick up a stunt. What are they going to work on in
Nope.
practice all week? That, because it is the game plan that they're going
Mhm.
to see from every defensive coordinator, and everybody knows it. Because you didn't just take 3 sacks, you didn't take 5 sacks, you took 7. You
Yeah.
had almost half your downs get pressured. People are going to overload you. They're going to heat you up. You better be ready for it because that's just what's coming. But Caleb Williams, in his pressers just recently, talked about how everything really it came down to a communication issue that Caleb feels like he needs to be better and faster within his adjustments, and that he takes ownership because he said that all of the communication problems, ultimately, the buck stops with him, which I love that, Nick. That's the ownership I think you need. Like when we're talking about how this offense, and I really believe this, is a couple cleaner pockets, a little better separation, and a calmer quarterback away from really putting up some big time performances. The pieces
Yes.
are there for a very healthy passing game. God forbid you add an okay running game to it. And right
Mhm.
now, some parts of the Bears offense are so abysmal that I have to think the coaches are going to pull 100-hour weeks to find an answer. And
Yeah.
then they'll workshop that answer over the course of the next couple games, all of which are a little easier. They're going up against the worst run defense in football this year, and it just lost to Forrest Buckner.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
it's well, and one thing that we do know from the presser from Flus is he said that the offensive line is going to stay the same. I mean, you one thing you have to look at here is Nate Davis was limited with a groin, and Tevin Jenkins did not practice with a thigh. So Matt Pryor filled in at left guard. So we'll have to monitor that, but it's going to stay the same. And the best offensive lines in football, y'all, they play together for a long time, year after year, and constantly shuffling it I don't think improves it. So that is one thing. Well, another thing I want to talk about with the game, though, Robert, is I want to start off with a stat. 3 is the stat.
Okay.
3 is the amount of points the Bears have allowed in the second half of both games combined. When you look at the first half of that game against Houston, 16 points, 3 in the second half. Titans. Titans came out to that big lead, 17-3 at the half. Didn't score in the second half. So one, we talked about this in the last podcast. Flus has been adjusting, which is awesome. But two, this defense is going to keep us in games. Okay, no matter what's going on with the offense, defense is keeping us in games, and they're good despite being tired and being on the field for a long time. Imagine you talked about the offense gets another first down, you know, every other drive at a minimum. Okay, or they sustain some drives. The defense will be more fresh, and they'll play even better than they are. So I just think that's the other thing that I thought the defense was going to drop off a little bit. I'll be honest, right? I thought it good last year, but it can't be that good again. It's that good.
Well, it's so funny, right? We're looking at basically the worst case scenario of Bears offensive personnel right now. And I know that sounds dramatic, Nick, but it's like, okay, Keenan's already dealing with injuries. Rome
Mhm.
is weeks behind where we hoped he would be. Then offensive line is obviously struggling like crazy. This is all making it to where Caleb Williams is not just hitting the ground running like a maniac, in part because his running back apparently can't see. So you start to manifest all of it and you go, ooh, that's tough. Not unmanageable. There's too
Yeah.
much talent on the team for them not to come up with solutions eventually. Just so we're all on the same page, Bears fans. When I say worst case scenario, it's still enough to figure it out. And it's
Mhm.
definitely enough to find a stride by week 10. This is just, we're not on the exceptional rookie quarterback schedule. We're on the normal rookie quarterback schedule.
The other thing too with that, Robert, is you look at the offense. So okay, DJ's done it before, Keenan's done it before. Rome led the NCAA in receiving yards, and everyone thought ninth overall pick was a steal.
Yep.
So could say seventh or higher overall pick. Look, you talked about Harrison. Neighbors went off last week too. So you're like, okay, that's in the repertoire. Go through the O line. They're all talented, y'all. I know people loathe Nate Davis, was good for 3 years in Tennessee. Braxton has been solid for 2 years. Tevin has shown he's high end. Colin Shelton was a middle of the tier center last year, and Darnell's a top 10 pick. So you go through that. Oh, I'm sorry. Cole Kmet, I will give you the respect that we've been talking about. He's quicker this
He
year.
had an awful
Like
game, dude. He
he
had
had,
an
he had bad games. I
abysmal
mean,
game.
Swift has been better than he has been too. Like very talented. So like of the talent of the offense, and I said this before, I don't know that they could play any worse because like they should be so much better than they are that I think the only way to go from here is up.
Right. And I mean, what I was even building towards is we are masking, like we are not talking because of the offense about how the defense is quickly becoming best case scenario. I'm not even playing around. Andrew Billings looks like a top 20 defensive lineman. Like right now, Andrew Billings is playing amazing ball.
Do you want to know where he ranks PFF wise?
Probably like seventh.
He is seventh. Seventh among D tackles.
Right. I was going to say it's specifically
Dog.
interior lineman. Dude's playing amazing. Like, I'm not surprised he's hurt. He's playing almost double the snaps that he's just about ever played in his life. And he's forcing fumbles. He's creating pass rush pressure. He's still occupying 2 gaps in the run game. Like, he went from darling you and I talked about on podcasts to like, he's quickly becoming a national name at this rate. And I hope he keeps that up.
Did you see him as a one tech? And then the guard comes in and he swims around the guard?
Yes.
I was like, how are you that quick?
He's a dog.
I mean, stuffer.
His feet are so good. They have been for 2 years. It reminds me of Akeem Hicks. And I don't know that we're getting there. He's already 29, right? But the quickness he has at probably 330 pounds is outrageous. And it's fun to watch. Javon Dexter looks like a clear starter. Do we have a little more there that we could refine? I think we could find something. When he wins a pass rush, he wins it big. He's also right now the least productive pass rusher on the Bears line in terms of per rush pressures. So he gets a lot of chances, but he does make good on his. But man, you want to talk about the darling of this defense? Like, yes, it's Jalen Johnson, but there's one more guy, Nick, that I think everybody wrote off. Don't you? Right? Everybody said, well, he is who he is. But Tremaine Edmunds has been playing great football, and it has tied a lot of this defense together.
Dude, Tremaine Edmunds is playing like a guy that is now comfortable in a system and comfortable with his teammates, and he's better in the run, which we have critiqued him for. I mean, rightfully so. He's better in the run. I mean, honestly, he's playing up to Edwards' level, and Edwards has played like a top 10 linebacker. So that's scary. I do have a question for you, though, Robert, because again, I have these rankings up, and I thought it was a good way to kind of review the first 2 weeks of the year. I talked about the PFF rankings kind of the offensive guys. Where do you think Javon Dexter ranks among D tackles right now?
Among D tackles? How many D tackles? What, like 60?
So you said starter level, right? That was what you kind of quoted, right? So there are, oh boy, here we go. 115 D tackles graded.
That's a lot of defensive tackles. I would guess that Dexter's probably grading like 45th.
29th.
There we go, Javon.
I know. And just because you live there, okay, and this is non-Bears, but just because I see this, 3 of the 5 worst D tackles are in Dallas. Linval Joseph, Mozzie Smith, and Jordan Phillips. Yuck. Okay. Anyways, so he's crushed it, right? I was actually pleasantly surprised. These guys weren't ranked among the D tackles, but their overall grade. And again, y'all, 60 or better is solid. Chris Williams, 66.7, Robert. So when he's been getting snaps, and Pickens only played last game really a little bit, but he was 68.2, which is serviceable.
It's playable.
I'm sorry, above serviceable for backups.
It's definitely playable. Like, this defense is eating. I don't want to, Bears fans, we can't sit here and review the last game forever, but I don't think that there was a play that typifies this Bears defense better, Nick, than CJ Stroud drops back to pass. He gets that sexy Y cross action that he loves to hit, and he has hit it in almost every game he's ever played, and he throws it, and Jack Sanborn leaps up into the air, tips the pass, and the ball falls relatively harmlessly to the turf. This Bears defense is squeezing windows.
His grade is?
What?
What do you think his grade is, Sanborn?
I bet Sanborn is Sanborn elite. Like, is Sanborn in the 90s?
90.2 is his overall PFF grade. Now again, limited snaps, y'all. But I was like,
he's good at what he's good at. Like, and I say that just because this Bears defense is taking away windows and constraining margins that other defenses just don't have the capacity to constrain. I mean, it's the same Fangio principle, right? Of, can you play with 4 down linemen and stop the run even while you're sitting in nickel? And with 97 in the game, the answer is yes. I am a little worried about his usage because he's not coming out of the game almost at all. Like, at least what I'm seeing with Billings, man, I'm like, Billings, we are going to need you later. Like, you can't miss anything.
Well, but hopefully the offense can, can sustain more, so then he has less snaps to take.
Are you ready to talk about the Colts game?
Well, no, because I want to get through a little bit more of these grades. I'll be quick if you
Sure.
want. So
Sure.
you talked about Jalen. Jalen's ranked third in the NFL. Dude, Kyler Gordon, man, he might be just that dude at nickel. I mean, the way he blitzes, again, he missed one that he would have been awesome on. He had said in the press conference, the refs told him, Robert, that if they would have called it an interception, they wouldn't have had enough to overturn it. So that would have been a pick six in theory. Stevenson, again, rough game, but both safeties, 26th and 28th, Brisker and Byard, which is nice. We were
Hmm.
talking about the linebackers. D end is one thing I'm a little concerned on one guy. DeMarcus Walker, 19th. 19th, y'all. We need another edge. DeMarcus Walker's like,
I'm
I'm
that guy.
I'm printing off all of these tweets and I'm putting them all over the locker. And he's just, like the Vince Papale,
Hmm.
the invisible, he looks at that cardboard every time. He's like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm gonna, and then he goes down his gun or whatever. That's DeMarcus Walker, y'all. So keep it up. Taylor, right? Still been productive. We liked what we saw both weeks from him. Booker, his grade is 42.9. Disappointing. Sweat is the 48th ranked edge. And I just don't think he's healthy. That's my guess. What do you think?
I think he's just getting all the attention. You need a guy to do this, in my opinion. There's an element of a sacrificial lamb, in my opinion, that happens with a lot of these guys. It also helps that DeMarcus Walker is a power edge in a speed edge's world. So there are a lot of tackles that just are not built to take
Yep.
him on right now. And
Are
so
you saying he's built different?
uh, in the literal sense, yeah. And so it's funny to me just because then with Sweat, I've seen a lot of people that are hand wringing, but at the same time, Nick, if there's one reason to go back and watch some of the ugly in the Bears tape, and I know you did, it's to see that Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter are just not like most guys.
They're
And
so
Sweat is awesome. Sweat is a lot of things, but he never was that guy.
no,
And
no.
so there's part of me that looks at Sweat and I'm like, I don't mind. PFF is going to grade really harshly when a guy isn't productive. And then when say, because I'm not trying to tank on PFF grades. I think they're a very good second opinion,
Yeah,
really. But when you are a guy like, oh gosh, Darrell Taylor, it's Darrell Taylor, right? I keep wanting
yep.
to make it Darnell. That's why I keep
I
asking.
said it wrong earlier. I think it's Darrell. Yeah,
When you have forced a strip sack on limited snaps, your grade's going to look insane just
sure.
because you had the right production at the right moment.
Yep, yep.
Montez Sweat is, I would say, he has less sacks than his pass rush production has offered him. Therefore, his grade's going to be deflated compared to a lot of guys, especially because, man, they're running at Sweat. Every chance they can, they're running at Sweat. They're chipping Sweat. Every team that has faced Sweat only focuses on him. Part of the
Yeah,
reason
no, I
Billings
agree
is
with you.
part of the reason Billings is eating is because nobody's caught on that he's playing this well yet. And
Yeah.
so right now he's not getting a double. And so he's just single blocked and he's like,
No, he
you get a
will.
single block me? He says, you get a
The
single block
but the
me?
but the thing is Sweat, remember, end of training camp, missed some time, right? And actually started training camp and later missed time, and then right now he's limited with an elbow. I just wonder if there's something else a little bit that's bothering him that he can't play at his level that he wants to.
Maybe. I mean, that's certainly the optimistic take. And I would say let's call it the pessimist's take would be whatever he's doing, the defense is making it work. And
Right.
so part of me looks at it and says, I don't mind this because I
Mhm.
think he'll rebound. But even if this is all we get, well, right now, the composition of the defense is taking it and making the most of it. Kudos to the defensive staff. They are ripping on adjustments right now. Like
Yes.
that, the second half adjustments are something special. Sure, you'd love it if the game plan was better in the like immediate, but that's where the offense is supposed to have the advantage. The offense is the one who rolls in with a different plan. You are kind of reacting to it, especially the way Flus plays defense. They are a very reactive defense,
Mhm.
but they get to the point where they've figured out a lot of the tailorings and they just shut the door.
Well, the one thing that bugs me though is that people are like, well, yeah, it's because of Will Levis. Dude, CJ Stroud is that dude. Those three receivers they have are awesome. They have a good O line and they got shut down. by this defense on the road when they were already tired from the first half. The offense can't sustain anything even in the second half, and they still shut them down. Like, to me, I think it's remarkable that so now when you get to this stage of the schedule, when you're not facing that level of Houston, you can't say, well, you're just playing bad opponents. We just did it to CJ Stroud. You didn't think we can do this to Richardson or Stafford without any of his receivers or the Patriots or Washington? Like, come on.
Not to be the guy who says like haters gonna hate in a very literal sense, but you can only play the guys on your schedule. And at least right now, I think the Bears are going up against three pretty easy teams. The third one they're going up against just got a lot harder. Like, say what you will. Bryce Young getting benched and then playing a requisite NFL quarterback makes the Panthers an any given Sunday team. They're
Revenge
still
game, man.
they're
Andy Dalton
still
revenge game.
I know, I'm actually worried about it. Not because I think he's going to beat the Bears, but just because that'd be such a storyline, right? But that remember, QB1.
Yeah,
But it is
yeah,
it is funny, right? Because when it comes to defensive rankings, I did not expect them to outscore the Titans offense along with their defense or along with their special teams unit, and I
right.
didn't expect them to keep the Bears in the game. Caleb and the offense in the third quarter, dude, the wheels fell off. Like you could even
Mhm.
see the offense in the I'd say 5 minutes left in the game. They're jogging through their routes. Most of the skills personnel look like they've given up.
Yep,
And the defense still found it in themselves to
yeah.
make plays on plays on plays, not including or not limited to, but including Andrew Billings creating a badass fumble
Yeah.
where it's just like, okay, we're just that guy then.
Yep. Yep. Do you want to go Colts here?
I'm ready for it because there's one matchup to me that'll swing this game. There are going to
Mhm.
be some people that are going to highlight Josh Downs. There are going to be some people that are going to highlight the Bears defense or the Bears offense against the corners, and the corners are awful. Like there's a lot of things that favor the Bears, but there's one that doesn't, and that is the like Russian roulette game that is defending Anthony Richardson. The Bears defense right now is extra good, if you ask me, Nick, at defending conventional quarterbacks. But if there's one thing I've seen Flus's scheme struggle with, it's containing true rush threats at quarterback because they'll play a lot of standard gaps and standard drop coverages. And then Anthony Richardson can come out and click out 7 yards of carry, and he might take a beating, but he's going to be able to move the ball with his legs. Lest we forget, Nick, the Titans' wheels fell off because Will Levis couldn't run the ball anymore, not because those rush lanes just disappeared. That extra ability to tote the pill really helps. But Anthony Richardson's completion percentage and his ability to, let's call it, run an offense in general right now is so hit and miss in the most literal sense possible that he may run himself out of the game. Like
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson might turn the ball over a couple times. It's so funny because when I talk about Anthony Richardson's rushing threat, like right now, if the Bears were playing the Cardinals, I'd talk about how Kyler's rushing threat makes this Cardinals offense a massive danger to this Bears defense.
Mhm.
But with Richardson, it really is more of, in my opinion, Nick, a wild card where it's
It
like
is. It
this
is.
could break really badly. But there's
Mhm.
enough weird in Richardson's game that he might make enough mistakes to neutralize his own ability to potentially gash the defense. What do you
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a wild card coming out of college, and that's the other thing. So we remember Trey Lance basically started 1 year of college and was hyped up to be this whatever and didn't end up hitting. Richardson's the same way. Started 1 year at Florida. Again, big guy, athletic, wild arm, but the fundamentals aren't there. I mean, last year he played in 4 games, didn't start, didn't play or complete 4 games, but he played in four and two so far this year. And as you watched last week against Green Bay, wild, erratic footwork. He's just trying to arm a lot of stuff. If you look the first week, he completed 3 passes over 50 yards. I don't know that. I mean, any of them, maybe all of them should have been picked. Like it was risky what he was kind of doing. Now he can get away with some stuff because he has the best top 3 O line in the NFL in front of him. But again, his passer rating right now is 63.1 for Richardson. His completion percentage 49.1. I mean, it's really just all over the place. So you're talking wild card running, which he has 93 rushing yards. He's a wild card throwing because you don't really know. It's going to be
That's what
way
I'm
off
saying.
with his feet planted. It's going to be just a bomb out of nowhere. It's going to be a pick. Like it was. they threw away the game against Green Bay last week. They should have won, but you don't know what's going to happen with him. So
If
the
you
interesting
were
thing for me is Jonathan Taylor behind that O-line is something I worry about. He's 39th ranked PFF running back right now,
I was
and that
about to
O-line,
say,
yeah, and that O-line, y'all. Let's go down the line. 13th, 10th, 4th, 2nd, 27th. That's where they rank among their position group. And Quentin Nelson's 10th. Ryan Kelly's 4th. Bernard Raymond, Bears fans probably remember that one. That was the guy that they thought about getting at tackle. So he's left tackle. On through very, very good O-line. But the receivers, it's a little hit or miss because of Richardson. I worry more about the run game, Robert. Like if they can get that going and consistently, will we be able to stop it, and will they be able to sustain drives?
in principle, when you're evaluating the Colts offense, that's what you should be worried about. In
Mhm.
practice, I don't, I'll knock on wood as I say this, Nick. Nobody ran it against the Bears last year. And
Yeah.
this year, nobody's running it against the Bears. I don't mean to keep citing the guy like I've got a statue of him built in my house or something, but Andrew Billings will not let you run the ball like that. You can run it, you could try, but you're gonna just have too
Well,
many
f-
plays.
first half Tennessee did well though.
First half, Tennessee got shuttered for 3 drives straight. And then they had 2 drives that went all right. I'm right there with you. But then they immediately got shuttered again.
I know.
I think that the Colts. So here's one thing that I do think is a problem, Nick. We should talk about this. In the NFL, it's not common to score 30 points. It's also not common to score 10 or less. I feel like when we talk about shuttering an offense, right? I'm talking about 14 points. I don't know where your head is at, but it's when you predict that a defense will hold the opponent to 7 points, you have embarrassed them. If you keep them out of the end zone altogether, you have destroyed
Well,
them.
on that point, Robert, last week I believe I was 27-24 Houston, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember what you had. Houston scored 19, and they're an elite offense. They scored 19,
Yep.
and the Bears turned the ball over more than Houston did. Like everything was in Houston's favor, and still the Bears held them to. I think that was an elite performance.
Right. Not to mention, maybe I'm just being optimistic here, but Lucas Oil is in the Bears time zone. So the body clock is not that different when it comes to how they change. And because it's a dome, and because the Colts are kind of funky and close. Remind me, because I don't have my Midwestern geography very well. There should be the ability for a bunch of Chicago fans to go to this game, right?
Oh yeah, oh
Chicago
yeah.
historically travels super well. I say this to say it should be a little friendlier than Houston was on Sunday Night Football
Yep.
to Caleb Williams. Call it a feeling. But so I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well,
You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. I didn't realize he has 5.5 yards per carry this season. So
mhm.
apparently on limited attempts, he's running the ball pretty well. But I'm right there with you where the Bears are gonna play Matt Stafford next week. And not to give anybody a way too early preview, but the Rams just don't have the weaponry right now to sustain down to down offense with a standard quarterback against the Bears. Andy Dalton is honestly going to be in the same blender. The problem is, like you're talking about, the Colts are an extremely unorthodox offense
Yeah.
where they are or they're scoring most of their points on these wild heaves down the field. And
Yep.
if you find Alec Pierce, you scored 7 points. And
Right.
if you didn't, you sit and wait for the next drive. You know what
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean?
well, one thing for Bears fans to kind of pay attention to. So just of the receivers, Michael Pittman's their normal stud go-to. He's 82nd in PFF ranking. But again, we had talked about this before. Generally the more production that you get, the more that you can rank higher. AD Mitchell, Bears fans have wanted him, I believe, in the draft last year. A speed guy. He's 101st, so he's struggling too. Weird. Rookies are
Rookies are
struggling.
bad.
Yeah, but Alec Pierce 8th. Okay, so one thing that kind of pay attention to in terms of okay, what are the Colts going to do? Okay, when you're watching the game, Mo Alley Cox, tight end, humongous human being. He ranks second among all tight ends, Robert, mainly because he's an elite run blocker. So when he's in the game and he's attached to this O line, you got to think, okay, Jonathan Taylor time, quarterback's going to keep it right. And then Kyle Granson's their other tight end. He's not as good. He's ranked 64th, but he's more of the receiving type. So if you're trying to look for a tip of like what's going on personnel wise, that would be one being, hey, run versus pass.
It'll be a real test for the Bears defensive line. Are you real? Because right now the Bears D line has played some pretty good ball, like you're mentioning, but they're going up against an offensive line with some talent. Another thing I think will be a question. So, Nick, I've watched this. I'm sure you have too. We always like to think that more weapons equals better offense. And sometimes that's true. But I wonder with Josh Downs making his first start of this 2024 season, whether the Colts are going to try to run a little bit more RPO, a little more option route, a little more short stuff for Josh Downs, who I know they like. And if they do, can Richardson hit them consistently? Because as far as we go matchups to matchups, man, Tyreek Stevenson against Alec Pierce, I actually do like that a lot. I think if Michael Pittman ends up against Jalen Johnson, that's a matchup we like. Josh Downs is exactly the kind of player that you would expect Kyler Gordon to win against, where Nico Collins is a nightmare matchup. Kyler is size for size on on Downs, and you would anticipate that, especially if Anthony Richardson gives anything away, Kyler and Tremaine and TJ should be able to put Downs in a box that might create a turnover. But I don't know. I struggle to look at this game and not think that the Bears can generate 2 takeaways. I don't know what to think of the Bears offense because
Right.
do we want to talk about that side of the ball?
Well, the last part about Josh Downs is this. So, big fan of him in college. Still a big fan of Drake May. So I watched a lot of Josh Downs, y'all. Josh Downs is coming off of a high ankle sprain. This is his first game back. High ankle sprains take a long time to heal. He is going to play. I don't know how healthy he is. So if you take 75% Josh Downs and put him against 100% Kyler Gordon, Robert, I really like Kyler Gordon's odds more. So I agree with you. They could try some of that stuff. I just don't know if he's going to have the burst or the wiggle that he would normally have. And that's really all of Josh Downs' game. You take that away, he's not going to body anybody. He's a tiny human being. So
Hey,
I
I've
just
seen
don't.
too many Bears coaches try something that was patently stupid the moment you put a couple seconds of thought into it because the top line idea of let's run some stuff for Josh Downs is all that seemed to drive the
You mean
thought.
like DeAndre Carter blocking in a bubble?
Yes, that's exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking
Tyler
about.
Scott is the crack guy in crack toss last year. Remember that one?
Mercedes Lewis, who I love you, Mercedes, becoming just the most blatant run tell possible.
Yeah.
Like we're never gonna pass it with 84
Right.
in the
Right.
game, and it's
Uh,
whatever.
do you want to start defense?
So the funniest part to me talking about the defense and the offense. So we talked about how last week the Bears had DJ Moore.
Oh, actually,
Oh
can I stop you?
yeah,
Because I have overall numbers for their offense.
give it
I
to
can
us.
go through that quickly. That'd probably be advantageous.
Sure.
I also have it against the Bears ranks, y'all, so that way you can kind of have something to compare it to because I know that we're not happy with the Bears offense. So overall rankings, again, this is expected points added, okay, for all of this. So Bears rank 30th, okay, not a surprise. Colts are 14th, so slightly above average. Passing, Bears are 29th. Colts are 25th. Rushing, Colts are 3rd, and Bears are 21st. Now, again, looking at that, Robert, if the Colts are that high, but Jonathan Taylor isn't been amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because the quarterback can run too. So that's the other thing to think of, as you had talked about. Scoring offense, surprisingly, both teams are 18.5 points per game. Third down percentage, the Colts rank 19th, the Bears are 27th. Red zone percentage. So this is if you are scoring when you get in the red zone. Obviously, touchdowns count for more, but still, you're scoring. Colts are 8th, Bears are 14th. Average field position, Bears are 11th, Colts are 15th.
Makes sense.
Hmm?
I'm right there with you on that.
Yep.
Like I don't know.
No,
It's
and it's kind of what we expected, you know what I mean? But I just thought it would put a
Mhm.
little, a cherry
It's
on top of that stuff.
it's a very weird game, I think, when we talk about this, because from a matchup wise part or point of view, I like the Bears a lot, but the Colts have enough talent on the team. They're at home. They're a hungry team because they're 0-2. So
Yep.
they're like, what's easy to forget is when you're 0-2, your locker room's not stoked, your coach isn't stoked, your owner isn't stoked, your
Yep.
fan base isn't stoked. we think we're mad in Chicago. Being 0-2 is bad. You're in a bad place. And so the Colts are going to play this game like it really, really, really matters. The
Yep.
Bears are going to play it like it really matters. And I think they might have the talent to win anyways. I really do. But they, I would argue, Nick, are a much better bet to, like, of the three games, the next three. I think the Colts are the most dangerous team the Bears are going to
Oh,
play, like the
well,
biggest
by
threat to
far,
win, because I
by
just
far.
don't think the Rams have the fangs anymore, and the Panthers are the worst team in football. So,
Yeah.
what talking
Well,
about this game, what you just highlighted that I was stewing on there is that the Colts are a lot more even with the Bears than we want them to be in a
mhm,
lot of categories. They are
mhm.
not a bad team; they're just a beatable team that the
Well,
Bears
well,
match
let's
up pretty
let's
well
get to
with.
the defense though.
That's the thing.
Let's get to the defense because offense-wise against our defense, I would still edge our defense, but
Advantage
still I can
Bears.
see ways that they could score points.
Yep. But the big thing, at least for me, I don't want to boil it down to this. I think Kenny Moore is awesome. Their starting corners, if Kenny Moore is in the nickel, do you know who they are?
Yeah, because I've already done the work.
Perfect. Well, Julius Brents just got hurt. So they've got seventh rounder Jalen Jones, whose whole thing is that he's unbelievably slow. He's going to be starting at corner, and he's going to start alongside. Let me see. The name is He is Samuel Womack III. He's
Yep.
been in the league for 3 years. He's the fill in for Brents. And what caught my eye is that he is 5'9", I believe. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. He's 5'9", 190 per his listing, which is like, oh, okay then. So whether it's Roma Dunze, whether it's Keenan Allen, whether it's even DJ Moore, you go from facing Derek Stingley, who strapped you up pretty bad, to facing a much easier to deal with corner room. Does that mean the Bears are going to just air this ball out? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, Nick. I'll probably just give you a prediction in like baked into this. If Caleb Williams doesn't have his first 20-yard throw in this game, then yeah, the Bears are going to be in trouble because I do think they're going to be vulnerable enough where this is where you just got to uncan a couple of these. They don't all have to be 50-yard bombs, but we've at least got to hit like a corner ball or a seam ball or a post ball. You got to connect on one of these because these corners are going to give you chances.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree with you because when you start going through their defense, and you had highlighted, their team. So um, I'll go through a little bit more. So Quiddy Pay, edge, decent.
Solid,
Yeah, yeah, decent. Um, Latu, right? We remember that guy. That's a guy we talked a lot about, right?
but
He is
do you see he's
dinged
hurt?
up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Did not practice with the hip. Also, their kicker, small thing, did not practice with a quad. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But anyways, so pass rush might be a little bit less because of that. Darn. Buckner, not in there. Grover Stewart's been solid. He's been the 17th best D tackle.
He's a dude. He's
But
really
then
good.
then they've Taven Bryan, who's just bad. Okay. Linebackers, Zaire Franklin wants to talk a lot. He's 57th in the NFL. EJ Speed, Jalen Carley's, they're okay. Nothing to write home about. And you talked about the DBs. So, okay, that gives you an idea of the defense, right? You're like, okay, this is probably bad. Okay, now let me give you the stats. Defense. Bears rank second in the NFL. Expected points added by unit. Colts 29th.
It's bad.
Yep. Blitz percentage. This is the amount of times that they do it per dropback. The Colts are ninth, actually. The Bears are 27th. That's probably expected. But pressure percentage. So the percentage of dropbacks that become a hurry, knockdown, sack per dropback. The Bears rank fifth. The Colts rank 10th. So when the Bears are fifth, but they blitz 27th best rate, and we're worried about the blitz, I understand this, but the Colts are 10th, not as good. Pass defense, Colts are 31st in the NFL. That's with Juju. That's with Buckner. Bears are sixth. Completion percentage allowed. Bears are 61.8. The Colts, guess what they're allowing, Robert, completion percentage wise?
72%.
78.3.
No way.
That's
No
insane.
way.
Insane. Passer rating. Guess the passer rating they're allowing.
Oh, now you got me thinking it's going to be like 104.
120.7.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Unbelievably bad. Talk about a good defense, Bears are 74.8.
Can
So,
I
guys,
am I
this is
allowed to
this
say
is unreal
am I
level what they're
am I allowed
allowing.
to say, Nick, I hate these games. Like
Mm,
I
yeah,
I love the idea of these games, but in my history as a Bears fan, the one where we go, now they're going to play the easy defense. So they
yeah.
should just pipe them. And then they don't. Like I would love for this to be Caleb Williams 2018 Mitch Trubisky Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. If I
No,
got
that
to
well,
choose,
well,
yeah, that would be awesome, right?
yeah,
And who knows? Maybe it should be a firm step forward. We saw a firm step forward from 1 to 2. Why wouldn't we see a good step forward from 2 to 3? We
right.
got our first road start out of the way. We're working on communication issues. We cracked 150 yards passing. We're going up against DBs that, again, Nick, this I don't want to issue the challenge like too plainly. We did a lot of talking about this Bears receiver unit. You want to
Yeah,
make a statement? It would be nice if you could make that statement against one of the NFL's worst passing
right,
defenses, don't
right.
you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and the other part too, so you think about how bad their pass defense has been, you're like, "Well, who have they faced?" So, they faced CJ Stroud week 1, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you that, okay? But they faced Malik Willis week 2, okay?
Yup.
Malik Willis, and they couldn't shut him down. So, looking at the rush defenses, okay? So, the other part of the defense, so the Bears rank 4th in the NFL, which is good with maybe containing Richardson and Taylor. The Colts, again, in terms of efficiency wise, they're actually 13th. They've allowed the most yards because Joe Mixon had 150 in week 1 and the Packers ran all over him. In terms of yards per carry, they're allowing 5.1 versus the Bears 4.5. Points per game allowed, they're allowing 22.5 versus the Bears 18. Now let's get into some interesting stuff, Robert. Third down percentage. The Bears are third in the NFL, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And third down percentage allowed 25%. That's it. Insane. That's awesome. I'm juiced.
It's phenomenal.
Colts 29th, 54.8.
I love
Red zone
that.
percentage. The Bears rank 19th, Colts rank 26th. Points allowed per drive. Where they rank, right? Points allowed per drive where they're
Mm-hmm.
ranking. The Bears are 6th, the Colts are 24th. Y'all, if this isn't the get right game, there isn't one on the schedule.
You
Okay.
got
I know it's going to get easier, but this is it.
It's so funny though, right? Because if this isn't the get right game, then next week will be the get right game. And if that's not the get right game, then the week after that will be the get right game. And if that's not the get right game, you'll come out of the bye, and then the next one should be the get right game because it really,
Robert, if Caleb doesn't throw for 200 yards this game, are you going to be concerned?
yeah. But
Okay.
then we'll go check the tape, and just based on the way Caleb is playing right now, chances are it'll probably be a community effort again because that's what we're looking at so far this season. I mean, that's me. That's going to sound like massive cope, but I'm quickly getting to the point where I'm very comfortable with what Caleb is and isn't doing. We got to set our feet so that we can drive the ball down the field accurately. We got to stop trying to aim the ball so much and just throw it. You've thrown it before, throw it again. Like we got to stop thinking on some of these cases. But dude, there's a couple of these where like Caleb will hit the back of his drop. He's on read 1. He's already moved to read 2. Comes
Right.
back to his check down read 3. It's nothing too crazy yet, but it's good.
Well,
Here's my call out. Okay?
okay.
Got 2 guys for you. All right? Everybody's going to look at this and they're going to be like, this is the Keenan Allen game. And also, by the way, fun fact, I would bet you money that I could tell you why the Colts defense is so bad on third down at the very least. Would you like to
Why?
guess why?
No,
If
yeah,
you had
I
to
don't
if you
know.
had to guess, knowing what you know, why do you think the Colts defense is so bad? And why do you think the Bears defense is so good on third down?
Because they have corners that are good.
In my opinion, it is as simple as on third down, traditionally you're going to have to throw the ball because when you're not in third and short, you're not running the ball on third and 6, right?
Hmm,
At that point, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to isolate a corner and you're going to throw at him. And
yeah,
if you can do that, then generally in the NFL, you're going to have plenty of success because there are some dudes playing receiver. And then what's the corner across from you really going to do? For as
mhm,
much as we get after Tyreek Stevenson, he is what we thought he is, good enough to be obnoxious, not a free third down conversion. You'll get enough off of him, but you won't get them all. And then at that point, you have to push and attack somebody else. With the Colts right now, Nick, it feels like it's just open season. I mean,
Yeah.
just seeing the guys that are on their roster, I haven't watched a ton of Colts tape, but you say 54% conversion rate. They're not doing that assaulting the safeties. They're not doing that picking on linebackers. That sounds like our corners can't cover. And
Yep.
so I look at this and I say, this is it, 15. You're more athletic than these guys. You're bigger than these guys. This is a big game for Roma Dunze and DJ Moore
Yep.
because you should be able to just run on Jalen Jones. And at that point, you split that defense open, and now Rome's charging up the seam. I understand I'm talking like some hyped up radio sportscaster. Like, I get it, man. But I can't help but look at this game right here. And I say, if you let Grover Stewart wreck this game, then
Oh my God.
Shane, you're not worth the paper your paycheck is printed on.
No.
So you got to figure out a way to cover enough for your receivers to be dynamic against these guys. Because this isn't us arguing about Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed. This is not us talking about Derek Stingley. This is us talking about the replacements playing corner
Yeah.
right now. You
Well,
got to beat these guys.
Well, it's bad versus bad, and one of them can't. One of them has to win. So it's one of those things where, like, you look at the Houston Texans offense versus the Bears defense. It's like, okay, these are both two really good units, and one of them has to fold at some point here, right? And it was the first half their offense won, and second half the Bears defense won. This matchup, let's go here. Okay, so we're obviously very positive about the Bears offense this week, despite how they've played. Which is more likely, Robert? The Bears, or I'm sorry, Caleb passes for less than 150 yards, or Caleb passes for more than 300 yards?
You said which is less likely?
No, which is more likely between the two?
I know what you're baiting me into saying, and I
No,
can't.
no, I'm not. I'm not, because they haven't played well. So you could go either way.
I think I think some weird world where Caleb still can't hitch his mechanics together and ends up with like 135 yards because the Bears just ran the ball like maniacs. They just discover their run game, and the Bears end up with like 295 total yards of offense and 165 of it's on the ground. Like, I could see a world where they're under 150 right now. As a responsible analyst, that's the one I feel like I have to pick. But
Yeah.
Nick, I just want to say could also quickly become the kind of game where you call a jailbreak screen for DJ Moore, who breaks one tackle curling inside of the rest of them and houses a 55-yard screen pass. And then on the next down, you fake the screen pass, you throw it over the top to somebody else who like houses it for 70. And suddenly, over the course of a normal game, Caleb picks up a 300-yard game, and people on Twitter say, it doesn't count. He didn't
Right.
earn it. You know
Right,
what I mean?
Right. I mean, the other part too is you could say, hey, they're 10th in pressure percentage, and that could mess up stuff again, which I understand.
Oh, yeah. Plus,
But what?
offense is
But that's with
so down right now. This
right.
isn't the league of 2 years ago, at least at this moment.
Offense is down.
Like, I think I saw something, Nick, that it's like there's only been about 60% of the offensive touchdowns of 2022 that have been
Yeah.
scored through week 2 this year. Like,
Mhm.
60%. So,
Yeah.
of
Well,
all
I
the
know
times.
in fantasy world, I get it. Yeah. But here's the thing. If offense is down across the board, how are they averaging 120.7 quarterback rating allowed?
I
Like
don't know.
that's like so bad. That's like 2021 Bears defense bad. Where you're like,
Yep.
we're just gonna get rid of everybody and hope it goes okay, and it doesn't. Like,
My hope, man, just like you're talking about, is that this is like that game, right?
yeah.
Call it a hope, but my expectation would be, I mean, where's the bar right now? That's, I think, the biggest question. What does Caleb actually have to do to impress anybody? Throw 2 touchdowns? Like, have people catch
Well,
2 passes at the right spot? Is that it? Like 200 yards? You mentioned that. If he throws for 275, if he throws for 275, 3 and 1, right?
mhm.
What do you think the general reaction would be? Because
It-
at this point, I can't read. I just know they'd be explosive about something. But like,
who knows?
what would
Well, I
people
mean,
say?
I mean, he's a bust, so I don't know. I mean, are they going to start the shrine now? Are they going to make the statue? Who knows? Well, so the other part too about this game is I don't think this is going to be a good game for Cole Kmet or Gerald Everett, who's bad. By the way, I have his PFF grade for you. I know I did this just because I knew you wanted it, Robert. I
His
know
has to just be awful. He has
how
to be
big of a
rocking like a
fan
45.
you are. Well, I can look that up here in a second. But in terms of his um where he ranks among tight ends,
How
I'll
many
have you
tight
guess.
ends? 81 tight ends?
Out of 69 tight ends, where is Gerald Everett ranked?
He's 66th.
He's 61st.
There's 8 worse.
Yeah, his PFF grade 45.6. Shockingly, Big Dogs is 47.2. But again, he has a false start, which I think affected some of that, but he's not playing as well either. But I don't think in the interior, the linebackers are decent. Kenny Moore, right? Obviously a good slot corner. Like
Pick on
I
some
think
guys.
that's gonna be a spot. It's gotta be outside we'll pick on. So we'll wrap this up, Robert. I know you want to keep this a little bit shorter.
Mhm.
Um, what is your score prediction? I have mine already locked in. I know what I'm going with.
You know what? I'm usually the one who's conservative. Usually on this podcast, we get Nick banging his chest and he picks a big, raucous Bears win. And then I come in and quietly predict 7 points less on offense and like 4 points less on defense in a slobber knocker. But you know what, Nick? I think the Bears walk out with a 17-17 victory this week. I think they go into Indianapolis. I think the passing offense right now is at fever pitch. Like, why is DJ so frustrated? I think because they think they're better than this. And I think that frustration hits a peak in this game where the Bears find it throwing the ball. Caleb has a legitimately good performance, like an overall good performance. Let's not break out any crazy comparisons. Just a good performance. The Bears move the ball, they score points, and funny thing, I said 27. You're thinking I mean 27 offensive
No, I
points.
I thought you said 17-17.
No,
What's the score?
27-17.
Okay,
So
27 points.
Bears
Thank
walk
you.
out with a 10-point win. And I think we get another defensive touchdown in this game. So I'm thinking 20 offensive Bears points and then a defensive
Oh,
touchdown, like a pick six or something. But maybe it could be like a fumble recovery. Or you get one of those like picks at the 30-yard line that's returned to the 15 and then the Bears offense cashes it
yeah.
in.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
that's
got you.
I'm seeing like a holistic 10-point victory on this one. What about you?
I'm going bigger. I'm just it's where I'm at, okay? Now again, I picked Houston to win last week, Robert, okay? I've got
I'm sitting
I'm
here
gonna
trying to be bombastic and I'm about to get out bombastic.
I just this is I told you I had my number already. 31-13. That's where I'm at. I think that the Bears can literally
They
just
can.
I think they can blow this team out. I think they can.
Man, if they blow out the Colts, what is your look ahead score prediction for the Rams game?
It's let's see how healthy the Rams O line is and who else they get back. But
They just
they
lost
have
two more dudes, didn't they?
I think they have 10 guys on IR. That team is
They're
ridiculously
like
beat
all
up.
starters.
But I'm going 31-13, Robert, for a couple of reasons. One, the defense is legit good. So if they
Yep.
can shut down the only unit that's even good and helps with field position and gets turnovers, which is what they do, the offense should eat. They should back up into touchdowns. I Caleb's gonna have his first passing touchdown. Rome's gonna have his first receiving touchdown. We can't have a third game in a row with a drop touchdown pass.
It's
It's
getting
not
pretty
gonna happen.
ridiculous.
It's not gonna happen. But at some point the offense is gonna poof, or well, not just offense, the team 31 points. Okay. You can't just keep scoring in the teens here. It was 24 first week. But anyways, 31-13. That's what I'm going with.
If you told me that we're both right and the Bears end up 31 to say 13-17, but it's 24 offensive points and a pick six, I'm going to like slap virtual five with you
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
time next week. And speaking of next week, Bears fans, we'll go to final thoughts here in a little bit. But as far as your programming update, it'll just be me on Sunday. I'll see if I can't find a potential guest, but Nick's going to be on the road. So rather than have you, Nick, jump in and react to like a box score that you watched on the little game cast, we'll
Yep.
just give you some time to be with family, and then
Yeah.
we'll catch back up. So hopefully the Bears don't just lose or something like that and leave me just groaning and trying to explain and the unexplainable. It wouldn't be that crazy. It's any given Sunday. But my final thoughts are to stop freaking out. I don't need to make it long winded. I'm a pretty long winded person, but just whatever this season is to you, like tighten the nuts just a little. Or what is it? Loosen the nuts is what I was trying to say. Like just breathe, breathe. Right now, Nick, we don't know if the Vikings can sustain this momentum. We don't know if the Packers will remain virtually unbeatable. We don't know if the Lions will continue to teeter on this precipice of potential collapse. But right now, the Bears are the fourth worst team in the division. Maybe that'll change. This Bears team should undergo quite a bit of transformation, but how high will they reach? I don't know. What I can remind you, Bears fans, is that this time last year, we thought this Bears team was awful. We thought they were bad on offense and worse on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they quite surprised us in October, November, and December. The NFL is a marathon, no matter how badly we want it to be a sprint. And so take a breath and take all the wins where you can get them. Don't let anybody tell you that beating any of the next couple teams is meaningless. It means quite a lot. Because if this Bears team, let's say, Nick, goes from a C plus overall to a B plus over the course of October to mid-November, well, that means that they'd be ready just in time to try to steal a couple wins off some pretty good teams that are on the other side of their schedule, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
at this point, including Arizona and New England. Like they're not all the way up there, but what a great time to get some elixir games before you go face some testy opponents that'll
Yep.
get you ready for the division. Relax. Breathe. We don't know if Caleb's the dude. I've got high hopes, Nick, you've got high hopes, but you're not going to know next week either. Even if Caleb, here's the other thing, Nick, that I will say. I even said I was going to make this short. If Caleb rolls out and throws 350 yards for 4 touchdowns, that will not solidify that he's the dude. Like, it is still a data point. It's just as much a data point as 93 yards against Tennessee. It'll be nice to see he did it, but the next question will be, can we do it against not the Colts? And then you'll roll out against the Rams. Maybe he does it again. But does that point, are we Patrick Mahomes or are we Dak Prescott? Right? Or are we Kirk Cousins? Or are we Jimmy Garoppolo? There are plenty of quarterbacks that have had great games. There are plenty of quarterbacks that can eat against not great teams. You're just going to have to wait. We won't get an answer to this question.
No, it's a little paralysis by analysis at this point. How was he talking to CJ Stroud after the game? Did you see his body language? It's like, oh my gosh, like get a life almost at this point.
I'm just saying, maybe I'm too competitive, okay? But if I had somebody that was my age come try to dap me up and be like, dude, don't worry about it. It's all in you. I'd be like, who are you to say this to me? The rookie of last year? Like, what'd you win one playoff game and you think you're Aaron Rodgers? Like, it's not me trying to hate on Stroud. I get where Stroud thinks he's doing, but that's one of those moments, man, where the competitor inside me is like, I don't want to hear that either, you know?
Yeah. Well, you just lost the game. So my final thought is a little similar, Robert, but I made this tweet and I think this is an easy way to frame this to Bears fans too. Again, um, you talk about like loosening, the nuts or bolts or however worded. I mean, it's to not go a little north of the border. The relax part is, let's take a journey back, y'all, to the defense last year. Okay, started the season optimistic. I mean, me and Robert had to do this podcast after the Packers game, and that was one of the hardest podcasts I think of my life because we thought it was going to be it, and it wasn't. And then they stunk the next 3 weeks, including that comeback against Denver, and struggled. Kyler Gordon was injured. The Edwards, Stevenson, Yannick Ngakoue, Justin Jones, Billings played well, but a lot of new pieces didn't gel. And then the DC gets fired, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And then it slowly gets better. Gordon comes back. Flus has been calling the plays for weeks. You trade for Sweat. And then all of a sudden the defense is good. And you look at this year and you're like, okay, that's continued. Like, why is that? How many new starters do they have? Kevin Byard, brand new to the team. Dexter got promoted, but he already knows the scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Same D coordinator. You got a couple new backups. Taylor, we talked about. Chris Williams, we talked about. The rest of it's pretty much the same. So now let's look at the offense. New person calling plays. New person, both people calling the protections, quarterback and center, calling the protections are brand new to the team and the
Mm-hmm.
scheme. DJ is the same, but Keenan, Rome,
But the
they're new.
scheme's not.
Yeah, scheme's new. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Gerald Everett's new. Coleman Shelton is new. Nate Davis has been banged up, right? So didn't get all the practices in. And DeAndre Swift is new. So you go through the list and you're like, man, why is this not clicking? Because you don't have the stability. And it happened last year. And we hated the beginning of the year, but we liked the end of the year because the defense, oh, hey, look, all these guys have been together and it comes together. We know the offense is too talented for this to continue. We need to let it still gel together for them to learn, get rapport with each other, get rapport with Waldron, and it's going to be fine.
I
But you
know
have to
you.
think back to the defense,
Mm-hmm.
y'all, last year and seeing how that changed. And that's what's going to happen in the offense.
I know you hate this topic because it's literally too close to home. But at this point, I think it's hard to argue that Matt LaFleur isn't one of the best offensive designers in football. And even
Good.
he didn't have the Packers offense clicking last year with a whole bunch of new personnel up until week 9. These things can be group projects, and frankly, they can be pretty long ones and laborious ones. And in my opinion, Bears fan, I'll be blunt. As long as it ends with a good offense in December or a passable offense in December, whatever the journey to get there, it was worth it. Because the Bears need a solid offense once they get to that point in the season. I won't care how bad things looked against the Texans if they march into Minnesota and we're pretty sure that they can score 22 points. If they can do that, you can give that defense a chance against Kevin O'Connell and what is right now a hot Vikings team, but we'll see. All that to say, Nick, I'm right there with you.
Yep.
This could be a minute. I wish that we didn't get so excited because I do feel like we delivered this idea of expectations where it's like the Bears could come out hot. Well, they didn't. And now that they didn't, we're on a different railroad. And that railroad is the longer road.
I'm sorry. The other thing I missed that aligns to what happened last year with the defense too is Kyler Gordon was hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keenan Allen's hurt. Ryan Bates is hurt. So it's like, oh yeah, we're missing a piece because they're hurt too. Like last week would have been different with Keenan Allen. It would have.
Mm-hmm.
Rome wasn't 100%. If he's 100%, it would have been different too. Like those things matter, y'all.
Yep.
And I know everyone has injuries, etc. But I'm just letting you know, I think it mattered a little bit different when you talk about Stingley matching up man press man and no one else could win because where's Tyler Scott? Carter's brand new to the offense. Oh, again, another new guy. I didn't mention him. Like you go through the list, you're like, oh, it kind of makes sense why they struggled.
Yep. I'm excited. Can't wait. You ready?
Emoji. I think I picked this one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going out of town for a wedding, so that's why in Michigan. So actually, when the game's going on, I actually might be driving down through Indiana. I might be kind of close, but I think the emoji should be. How about something like wedding oriented? Because that's what I'll be doing. So if you want to do like either
the ring, the wedding ring.
Yeah, ring could be bells, could be the male, female, in their whatever their gowns or their suits or whatever. And then let's do
Score prediction.
We could do that, but also like something more fun. How about your favorite running back in Bears history? Like it doesn't have to be the best one because we know who the best one is. Maybe your favorite running back in Bears history. Hopefully we get some fun answers.
Hopefully we do. And I got to run. I'm about to collapse, but I've got just enough juice in me to sign this one off. Thank you guys so much for listening. Rate us if you enjoy it. Give us a like on YouTube if you like it. Tell your friends. Comment with the wedding or with a wedding emoji and your favorite Bears running back. It's probably going to be Thomas Jones. We all get it. But so within that, thank you so much for listening. We'll be right with you after the game. Bear down. Thank you so much for bearing with us.